If you're looking for real inspiration to get out there and live this life we've all been given, this video will do that. And this isn't a video where I'm going to say, seize your opportunities, although that's true also. This is a story about an inspirational chance meeting that Sarah and I had with another individual. And if I don't have your full attention, please give it to me now, as I'm going to tell you the greatest story never told. Every word of this is true. This isn't a parable. So let me set the scene about this chance meeting. We were in Penang in Malaysia, and we had a plan to make a video that day looking around Georgetown. We've been given a tip about a specific coffee shop that we needed to visit. Turns out a lot of people had the same tip. The place was absolutely packed. We picked up our breakfast and coffee and tried to find a table. We found one in the corner, and we set about starting to plan our day in this video. Then disaster struck. A man came along just as we were setting up and asked if he could sit there. I looked around the restaurant and there were no other seats. It was really his only choice. Normally, Sarah and I grasp any opportunity to talk to somebody new, but we had stuff to do, you know what I mean? We weren't just sat there having coffee. This was like a bit of a business meeting for us, but we had no choice. We said, of course. He set his stuff down, and that was a large croissant and 2 big pastries with it. And he said, could I look after those while he heads back and picks up his coffee? I said to him, you need to be careful leaving stuff like that with me. As he went round the corner to grab his coffee, he had this bellowing laugh, and already I knew there was something a little bit different about him. If you know anything about Sarah and I, you'll know that we sold everything we own a couple of years ago to travel the world for the next 10 years, putting it all on YouTube. And that's why it was pretty serious for us that we get a chance to make this video. He settled down, conversation flowed easily with this man from the Netherlands, and I'm just going to refer to him by his initial, N. And you'll find out shortly why I'm protecting his identity. He spoke with such passion and excitement on any subject. He was like an 18-year-old, and I know that Sarah was thinking just the same as me. Just how old is this guy? He was 80. Now, talking to Sarah later, I asked her how old she thought he was, and she thought he was late 60s. I thought he was 65. He was ripped and certainly didn't look 80. In our conversation, I took away 4 key lessons. I didn't make any notes. It was all going on in here. I didn't want to break the flow of anything. And there was a real kicker. So please stick around to the end when I share that. It's something that will haunt me till the day I die. The first lesson comes with his age. When he told us he was 80, Sarah and I, we nearly fell off our seats. And we were shocked. And then he was shocked that we were shocked, and we were all laughing. And this was the first lesson. There's no normal, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no age, there just is. He explained that the sad thing about youth is a need, a desire to fit in with everybody else. That goes with fashion, music they listen to, even the words they use.
All right, don't go on about it. Stop giving it all that.
And he explained that it was fairly early on in his life that he decided he wanted the opposite of that. He wanted to live as he wanted to live, not worry about fitting in, and not worry about how people think of him. So the lesson really was, don't try and fit in, because to fit in is to have some form of social straitjacking. Seek out opportunities to be you and to be authentically yourself. And this isn't to say that you care less about people. You should care as deeply as you always have for other people, but care less about what people think of you. And how do you think that's worked for N? How do you think people think of him? Well, people love him. As you could see from the way I'm talking, just to look into his eyes, you can see he's a good soul and someone amazing to be around. I've got to say, I haven't seen a happier man alive, let alone an 80-year-old man. In fact, he told us that a short walk from the coffee shop we were talking to him in, he saw an alley a couple of evenings earlier, and it was dark and foreboding, but he could hear voices. So, what did he do? Well, he didn't do what I do, and probably you. What I'd do is I'd look at that alley, hearing the voices at the end, and the darkness and the shadows, and then remember I'm in a strange, distant land, and carry on walking. No, he turned and walked down the alley and found a group of local men at the end, laughing and drinking. They asked him to pull up a chair, and he was there late into the evening, getting drunk with them and learning about the people from Penang. Through his change in approach to the world that he had long back then, he moved on and taught us our second lesson, and that's all about travel. He has no plan and he has no rules, and he feels that that sets him totally free to roam the world. And to articulate that, let me tell you a couple of stories of his travels that he shared with us. Firstly, in the 1960s, the late 1960s, he decided to overland from his home in the Netherlands to Indonesia. Just think about the planning involved in that. The late 1960s, no internet, no mobile phone. And I thought about it as he was talking, and I thought, well, if I was going to be doing that back then, or even now, I'd probably spend months planning, looking at all the stops along the way, what visas and issues I'm likely to encounter. What did he do? Well, I asked him. I said, how did you plan that? That must have been so difficult without the internet to help you. And he said, difficult? Far from it. It's the easiest thing I ever did. Back then, there were no computers, so you got to a border with your passport in a foreign language. People didn't even know what it meant. They put a stamp in the passport and on you go. Everyone was so helpful and friendly. It was probably the easiest thing he'd ever done. I just found that very, very humbling that he would just take up one day and pick up a bag, not having a plan. He didn't decide to go to Indonesia. He just decided to travel, and he overlanded all the way from there and finished in Indonesia. Also in passing, he told us, yeah, I've trekked the Himalayas. Oh, yeah, of course, as you do. And another story was he was once in India, and he was going from one town to another. He was on the back of a rickshaw, and he was just going through a village as the rickshaw stopped to let some traffic by, and he heard in the distance some interesting music. And he thought, I don't have a plan. So he paid the rickshaw driver to drop him there and then. He got off with his bag, and what did he do? Well, he found a local little shack kiosk at the side of the road. He left his bag with the guy running that, saying, I'll be back later, if you could just look after this for me. And he went in search of that music. And he stayed there a few days, listening and learning from these people in India before he picked up his travels again. Me? Would I leave my bag with a guy in a kiosk at the side of the road? No, too fearful. Him, he just trusts people and things come good. So that lesson that I learned from him is don't overplan. Don't be a controller of your future. It's okay to have some outline plans, but go where the world takes you. The third lesson was all about dreaming, and that is not to dream as much as we all easily do. He said that he's bumped into more and more people as he travels that look at him and think, oh, you're so lucky to have got this life on the road. And they dream of doing something similar. And he said the sad thing is he meets more and more people where that dream stays as a dream. They don't take action and move on with their lives. He spoke of many stories of people who are executives that he's spoken to who say, in a year's time, I'm going to be doing something similar. Then he meets them 3 or 4 years later and they still haven't done it. How many of those people take those dreams to their grave? He also said that many people he speaks to are religious and tell him that it's not such an issue because they have many lives to come. So if they don't achieve what they need to achieve in this life, they'll achieve it in a future life. He told me he has no religion, and as such, he knows this is his only life, and he's going to live this to the fullest. Allied to this lesson, he actually told me that there are some people that do live this dream of travel, but they get it a little bit wrong. And to be honest, Sarah and I have been guilty of doing this ourselves, and that is by moving too fast, rather than really savouring a location to travel through it and really see nothing. And this can be as simple as just walking down a street. Remember that alley I spoke about? How many alleys have you walked past and not even seen it or registered it was there. Now, how he learnt this was one of his earlier jobs was as a photographer, a professional travel photographer. And what he would do is with his camera, it would force him to set up his camera, find a scene, and maybe a scene of people working in a, I don't know, in a leather shop or a mechanic's yard. And in setting the scene, he'd have time to really take in what's going on in front of him. So his big lesson there was slow down. There is no need to do everything, and there is no need to get quickly from point A to point B. Sarah and I have made that mistake. Anyone we talk to on this subject, I always refer to a video we made a year or so ago about the Acropolis in Greece. If you want to go back and check it out, by all means do. I wanted to make the best video possible. But in so doing, when I looked at the clip back, I actually called Sarah over at one point and said, "Did you see this? I didn't see this." And she did. So for me, I was all about making a video and making something fantastic. I didn't see the Acropolis. There's a lesson to be learned there. If I want to make a video of the Acropolis, go and make a video of the Acropolis. But go back another day without a camera and really see the Acropolis. And the fourth lesson, something we've all heard many times, everything in moderation. So that is to say, he works out every day. He walks for miles and miles and miles every day. And that's why he looks ripped. Now, I spoke earlier about the massive filled savoury croissant he had and the two massive danishes as well. I knew he was a rule breaker before he even explained it, because do you know what he did? He ate both of those sweet danishes before he ate the savoury croissant. That's real rule breaking going on right there. And also, he was talking with such gusto. As he's eating those danishes and the croissant, he spat most of it over me as he was laughing. And I enjoyed it. And the same way, his music taste is totally eclectic. He doesn't like just one thing. He travels the world and he'll hear some music he hadn't heard before, like I said, in India. And what he'll do is he'll listen and he'll try and seek out a CD. Normally it's someone giving him a knockoff CD. He'll buy that CD and he'll post it back to the Netherlands. And the next time he's back there, he'll have a stack of CDs waiting for him that he can listen to, and it takes him back to all these places around the world. Incidentally, he said that the classical music from India is more intricate than anything Beethoven had ever created. Now, hopefully you can see this is different to any other YouTube video we've ever made or any other standard YouTube video, because this shouldn't be 4 lessons. This should be, if it's YouTube, it should be 7 lessons. The magic 7 works, or the top 10 things we learned from this guy. But this isn't your normal video. And I said at the start, there's a big kicker and something that's very different to anything I've experienced before, and made this, if anything, an otherworldly experience. He was such an interesting person. One of the things that we were both thinking as we were talking to him is, we've got to see him again. We've got to meet this man again. So when I got a space in the conversation to ask, I said, do you have an email address I could take down so we can keep in touch? He said, email? No. Oh, okay. Are you on WhatsApp or Line, or have you got Facebook Messenger? He said, no, I don't know what those things are. So, do you watch YouTube? No. Pressing him further, he said that the last computer he used was when he was in the army. He was in the Dutch army, and at the time he was in the Dutch signals, which is basically where they take encrypted messages and they decrypt it, and they decrypt messages and send it out. And to do that, he used the most advanced computer that Holland had at the time. Now, the first thing that makes this slightly unworldly for me is my dad, who sadly passed away last year, was in the signals in the British Army, which I found a bit strange. He then went on to say that was in the late 50s. And at that point, when he left the army, had different career choices. He had a choice to go into computing. Now just imagine, he would have been at the forefront of technology and thinking in technology at that time. Where could his career have taken him? We may not be using Apple phones, we might be using EDAM phones. because he was Dutch. There's a joke there somewhere. But no, he left the army and decided that he didn't like computers. That was the last computer he would ever use. He wanted to talk to humans and deal with humanity and not computers. So I said, well, how are we going to keep in touch? Well, there's so much more to talk about. And he said, I live on the wind and I go where the wind blows me. Maybe one day it will blow both of our paths together again. And so you've probably watched this video thinking, come on, Neil, you must have loads of pictures to share and lots of images that you could show us. But this is why I'm protecting his anonymity. He has set his life up so that he is not on technology, and it's not for me to change that and potentially change the trajectory of his life in a direction that he doesn't want. That's why I've not done that, and hopefully you respect that too. I said to him then, what you should do is write a book, because this is the greatest story never to have been told in print or on video before. He just laughed heartily and spat a raisin and a bit of Danish straight in my face. Do you know what? Sitting here just talking about this makes me think, is he some kind of guardian angel? For me personally, I've gone through a lot of struggles over the last 12 to 18 months. I've lost both of my parents and my health has been poor. You can see that from previous videos. And to be honest, I was feeling a bit sorry for myself. I met N at exactly the right time for me. How can I feel sorry for myself when this 80-year-old man is laughing and full of life? Really, what is my excuse? And I've got one question for you. What's your excuse for not being out there, living your life and living your dreams? Come on, we've all got this one life to live. Live it.